All right, so here's where we are. We're in a series on 1 Thessalonians, and here's what we typically like to do. We just take a book, read through it, preach on one verse, 5 verses, and break it down. And we've titled this Contagious, making Jesus and the church less resistible, because the Thessalonian church, Paul marveled at their example and how contagious they seemed to be. So that's where the name came from. It just came from the book, right? And today we're in chapter 4. We looked at verse 13 last week. Had to spend a little time there. We're going to move on to verses 14 to 18. But I want to talk, and this title's kind of strange. It's Christianity's most preposterous belief, but we all have preposterous beliefs. And last week I said, because today's text is prophetic, we get into the area of prophecy and last day end time events, and people are fascinated, have been, with the number 666. And I said, well, what we really should be fascinated are with the numbers 109 and 300. Oh, I never heard of 109 and 300. I know, that's what, I don't get that. And we'll get there before the day's out, I think. But anyway, but you have to admit, as believers, we believe some strange things. We just do. It reminds me of the little boy, Tommy, went to church one day, and they were talking about the crossing of the Red Sea. Well, the dad didn't know, so after church, the dad's like, you know, Will, did you learn anything today? Did you have fun, and did you learn? He says, well, here's what I learned. He says, well, you'll never believe how Israel got out of Egypt. He said, listen, Israel, this is how the teacher told us. The Israel escaped during the nighttime, but when daylight came, Pharaoh chased them all the way to the Red Sea and had them cornered, and there was nowhere to go. So Moses pulled out his satellite phone, and he radioed the Israeli army if they could come and give them some bombing protection. And the Navy came in and built, like a pontoon bridge so they could cross over the water. And they got it done just in time, and Israel got out of the country just before Pharaoh. And his dad looked at him and said, son, they really teach you that in church today? He said, Dad, trust me. If I told you what they really taught, you'd never believe it. And that's true. That's just true. I mean, the real story is it's just preposterous. We all believe wild things. Everybody in here. Everybody anywhere. Okay, you know what? When it comes to the universe and you will really only have 2 options. Creation or evolution, right? I mean, wouldn't you say? And so I just can't believe in creation. Why? Have you ever... Carol was reading about bees and beehives. Anybody ever studied beehives? So you think that evolved? Whatever. Your brain's got what? Millions, trillions connectors, and it just evolved? You buying that? Man, I don't care what. I don't care if you do. That's way out there, is it not? It's no more out there than believing that God spoke it into existence. It's no different. It's no different. I mean, we got a lot of, it's just, in the atmosphere, just the right balance of the elements. I mean, go on and all I'm saying, it takes a lot of faith to believe anything. So I don't know why it bothers us when we go to the Bible and we read something that just blows our mind. Christianity blows my mind. The Bible blows my mind. How we got it, how it was preserved. I mean, it all blows my mind. We put a man on the moon. That blows my mind. What if in my lifetime they put somebody on Mars? That's going to blow. I mean, who knows? Anyway, So today we're going to talk a little bit about the second coming of Jesus. In Luke chapter 21, Jesus said there'll be signs. Everybody likes signs, don't they? In the sun, the moon, the stars, and on the earth, distress of nations in perplexity because of the roaring of the sea and the waves, people fainting with fear, with foreboding of what's coming on the world. For the powers of the heavens will be shaken, and they'll see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with power and great glory. Now that is a crazy belief, is it not? That's just, And now when these things begin to take place, straighten up and raise your heads, because your redemption is drawing near. Now here's what I know. When you travel, and I notice this mostly when you travel out west because there's more barren land, but the closer you get to a town, there are more billboards. There are more signs. So if Jesus says that before the coming of the Son of Man, there will be signs, then my guess is that the closer we get, there will be more signs. Okay? So it's interesting when you think even about the number 666, which I have said has gotten a lot of attention. But there are so many other things that could get our attention. Do you know that so many of the prophecies in the Bible are on Israel and the Middle East? Now just think if you lived in 1878 and you're reading the Bible, reading about Israel, and you're like, there is no Israel. Oh, that's not going to happen. Israel was destroyed in the first century. They were gone. The temple was destroyed. It's over. I don't know about this Bible stuff. And then in 1948, they became a nation. So now I'm reading my Bible. Well, it doesn't seem to be too far-fetched now. And then Jesus said in Luke 21:24, they will fall by the edge of the sword, that is, Jerusalem and Israel, the Jews, and be led captive among all nations, and Jerusalem will be trampled underfoot by the Gentiles, non-Jewish people, until the times of the Gentiles are fulfilled. So Jesus said the day is coming when Jerusalem will once again be under Jewish control. 1967, Six-Day War. The Jews take back control of Jerusalem. I was like, wow, we've had two pretty big signs just in this century. Then there's the Middle East unrest, constant quest for peace. There is technology. I still remember, in the 1970s, there were so many prophetic nuts. They would tell you how everything was going to unfold, and this was in 1970s. Okay, that was 40 years ago. And I think you all get in a lot of these, you get into sensationalism and all that, and you try to figure out how this is going to play out and how that's going to play out. And, we really don't know. Look, they didn't have mobile phones back then in the 70s. How did they know? You know what the big thing was? We now have like CNN TV, and we can see how satellite can beam it down. Satellite, I don't have my phone on me. Got my iPad. Satellite, who needs a TV? I got it right here. Breaking news, I can hit on an app. I can see what's happening. Anyway. And then there's the coalition of European countries, and we're not going to drill down on a lot of these. We may in several weeks, if we're going to probably go through 2 Thessalonians. There's a major shift toward globalism, and wouldn't you agree, an explosion in information. Daniel 12:4 says, Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book until the time of the end. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall increase. Boy, explosion. All you got to do is go to the web. And you can type in some words and you can get 10 million hits. How much you need? I mean, you couldn't get through that in a lifetime. You understand? In other words, the closer you get to the end, there will be an explosion of information. And sometimes, and you know, a lot of talk today about artificial intelligence. I mean, we are like going at full force toward that. Think of Revelation 13. Nobody can buy or sell. Nobody. Unless he has the mark. That is the name of the beast or the number of its name. This calls for wisdom. Let the one who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for it's the number of a man. And his number is 666. But we're not going to talk about 666. I don't know how it's going to play out. All I know, we're going to have a global economy. We're in a global economy now, if you will. Listen, if tonight when the Chinese stock market opens and it were to go down, you know, because of some bad economic news in China, the European stock market would probably follow suit and go down, and the American stock market might go down. I mean, it's just, except now you have to understand, one thing about the world economy right now, while everybody else has the flu, if you will, America only has the sniffles. So if you're going to invest money, you just keep sending it to the good old USA because we're the best of all the bad. Are you with me? So you can't just go by our stock market and the selling of bonds and all and the economics in America, because do I need to remind you, it only takes an event like 9/11. Tomorrow morning, the stock market could crash 2,000 points if war broke out in the Middle East. You see what I'm saying? We walk around strutting in America, everything's so good and great. Not that it is, but it's better than everybody else, you know? I mean, when you're comparing, you know, if you're hitting 195 in baseball, you're strutting if everybody else is hitting 100. You know what I'm saying? I mean, 190, you don't strut at 198, but you do if everybody else is hitting 100. Anyway, that's not so. Anyway, and I could also give you an eighth sign, weapons of mass destruction. But here's what I know. This sounds so far-fetched. 2 Peter 3, Peter wrote, he says, most importantly, I want to remind you that in the last days, scoffers will come. Now, this is in the first century. Mocking the truth and following their own desires. And they'll say, what happened to the promise of Jesus coming? You don't see him, do you? No. But when Isaiah prophesied, you know, in like the 8th century BC that the Messiah was going to be born of a virgin, several hundred years prior to that, they could have said in 150 BC, so where's your Messiah? He ain't coming. But I think everybody in here signs their checks. The year 2015, Jesus Christ did come the first time, and he split history. So he did come. And they'll say, well, you know, from before the times of our ancestors, everything has remained the same. I mean, the world just keeps going on and on and on. It's the same old thing. It's far-fetched. Kind of like the resurrection. Jesus said, I'll rise in 3 days. Yeah. We haven't heard that line before, Jesus. I mean, listen. We're 2,000 years past the resurrection and Easter. We're used to it. Even the disciples who saw him raise Lazarus from the dead didn't believe he would rise from the dead. Are you with me how hard this is to get your hand around? That you would actually come back and live? He did. He did. I'm just telling you, you can look at all these promises in the Bible and you can write them all off because, yeah, it takes time. And all of the prophecies that deal with Jesus' first coming, they weren't fulfilled the day he was born. It took 30 years for a lot of them to be fulfilled. It was a process. All right, so we're in 1 Thessalonians, and in this book, Paul, and we have not stopped at these verses because we kind of wanted to take it all in at one time. Paul has already mentioned the second coming of Jesus multiple times in each chapter. Chapter 1, verses 9 to 10. Chapter 2, chapter 3. Now, in Jesus' first coming, he fulfilled 109 prophecies literally. Are you with me? Born of a virgin, born in Bethlehem, I'm just saying, literally. Now, there are over 300, I'll round it off to 300, over 300 prophecies about the second coming. Now, let me ask you, if you're 109 for 109, you going for the 300? I am. If I'm playing, I'll watch the ball game tonight. Now, nobody's hitting 100% of their shots. But if Stephen Curry, happened to hit 11 threes and never missed one in the game and there's 8 seconds left and they're down by 2, who do you think I'm getting the ball to? I'm getting it to him. It only takes him a split second to get the shot off. If Jesus came and fulfilled literally 109 prophecies, why would I even doubt that the 300, referring to the second coming, are going to be fulfilled literally? In chapter 1, Paul wrote and said to wait for his Son from heaven, whom he raised from the dead. Jesus, who delivers us from the wrath to come. And you think, wrath? Yeah, wrath. And Jesus said in Matthew 24, there will be great tribulation, such as has not been since the beginning of the world until now, and never will be. Now, history is rapidly moving. You know, I think a lot of times we think history is not rapidly moving. Think about it. I talk all the time now. Days fly by. Oh, it's not the days that bother me. Weeks fly by. That doesn't bother me either. Months fly by. That doesn't bother me either. Years fly by. Doesn't bother me either. Decades are flying by. Decades. My oldest child's almost 30. Are you with me? That's 3 decades, if you can count. You with me? They fly. They fly. Do you realize how rapidly history is moving to the climax? I mean, it's coming. And I know you can sit there and say, well, I don't know, that Jesus coming down from here. He did it the first time. He'll do it again. It's not a big deal. All right, let's look at the text now. All right? We'll go back to verse 13. Although we broke that down last week, I want to read through the entire passage, okay? So here we go. But we do not want you to be uninformed, brothers, about those who are asleep. In other words, these are believers who had died, that you may not grieve as others who have no hope. For since, I want you to understand something here. This is what you rest your case on right here. Since. For since we believe what? That Jesus died. That he rose again. Even so, though Jesus, God will bring with him those who have fallen asleep. Now I want you to understand, we're in the 1st century. Not everything has been revealed. It's coming. And in 1 Corinthians, this event that Paul's writing about is called a mystery, which means it was not revealed before. Okay, listen, when Jesus was here on earth, he did not reveal this part of his coming to his disciples. Are you with me? It was revealed to the Apostle Paul. And then it became taught in the churches. Now, I don't know how much Paul taught it to the church, but they were a little confused, and they thought that their fellow believers who had died were not going to participate in this event. Are you with me? So Paul says, no, don't worry about them. If they've fallen asleep, God's going to bring them with Jesus. So don't worry about them missing out. For this we declare to you by a word from the Lord, And so this particular truth about an end-time event, about Jesus' second coming, was revealed to Paul. All right. That we who are alive, okay, now keep this in mind. We're in the first century. Paul knows, I mean, he's had this revealed to him. Basically, it's like God saying, Paul, here's what's going to happen. Nothing really has to happen. Now listen. I know in hindsight you're thinking, but remember, we're in the year about AD 50. Jerusalem's not been destroyed. So Paul is not thinking Israel has to be restored as a nation. Are you with me? Now, all I'm saying is Paul expected Jesus to come back at any moment in his lifetime. That's why he said, we who are alive. Now, Paul was put to death in the 60s, even before Jerusalem was destroyed. All right? All I'm saying is, based on the revelation that God gave Paul, he expected Jesus to come in his lifetime. All right. Now, those of us who are left and alive unto the coming of the Lord will not precede those who have fallen asleep. All right. The Lord himself will descend from heaven with a cry of command, the voice of the archangel, and with the sound of the trump of God. And the dead in Christ will rise first, and then we who are alive, who are left, will be caught up. Now, caught up. So, here's what we have. The verb caught up. We're snatched away. All right? A Latin word is like rapturo. We get the English word rapture, which does not occur in the Bible, but this event, this first part of Jesus' second coming. Okay, you remember when he came the first time, he's born. But a lot more things happened. All right? So at his second coming, it starts with the rapture, the snatching away of believers. All right? Now, I just want you to get a picture. And I'm not pronouncing anything bad or good on anybody. We're going to just split the room right here, okay? Because that's just easy. We could go over here and we'll split it here, but we're just going to split it right down the middle. All right? So at the rapture, which side today feels the most spiritual? Anybody? Oh, well, nobody wants to get snatched out of here. Come on. Is somebody feeling like they're doing okay? Anybody? Okay, I'll make a judgment call. Okay. This side are believers. Sorry, you didn't help. And so we are sitting here, and all of a sudden, y'all vanish. And y'all like, what happened? You snatched away, raptured. Now that's pretty wild, isn't it? Huh? Preposterous. So was the virgin birth. So was rising from the dead the third day. I mean, so this is cake work. This is easy. All right. But I want to unpack it. All right, let's unpack it. There is a contrast in the Bible between believers and non-believers. Listen, I don't have to tell you, not everybody wants to be a Christ follower. You know what I'm saying? Not everybody wants to watch the NBA Finals. That's okay. You don't have to. I'll have fun, enjoy it, and all that. Hey, it's 8 o'clock starting time. I'll probably watch the whole game tonight anyway. So, listen. Hey, but you know, listen. Here's what I like. Okay. You know, I didn't finish reading the passage. Okay. I'm getting ahead of myself. So we're caught up in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air, and we'll always be with the Lord. Finally, we don't have to deal with the flesh and all that anymore. But anyway, and he says this, therefore, encourage one another with these words. Comfort people. This is not the end. All right? Comfort people with that. So I want to start, let's just unpack this a little bit. All right? There are two things that I just find interesting in the Bible. This passage, and then I'm not going to go there, but if you want to write this down, In Matthew chapter 6, 25 to 34, Jesus said that believers are capable at living at a higher level in their daily lives. And he talked about the subject of worry. Are you with me? Paul said there are people who go through life grieving and with no hope when they could have hope and grieve less. Now, if you have no hope, I don't care if it's about anything, it affects your life. If you're a ball player, it affects you shooting the basketball. If you don't think it's going to go in and you keep shooting, you're probably going to miss. I'm just telling you. And it's interesting that Jesus talks about worry. It's almost like people are saying, "Nah, Jesus, no thanks. I love to worry." And you tell Paul, "I love to live without hope." Interesting. I just find it fascinating that the Bible is so practical. I could stop and ask you, anybody here not worry last week about anything? Yeah, probably nobody. How'd that feel? You enjoying that? Enjoying that? You know, in the old days, bite finger, that was fun. It ain't fun. It's not fun. I still remember the day when I fell 37 feet. Now, I don't know how long it takes you to hit the ground. I guess you could do some math. Here's what I remember. I had committed my life to Christ within the last year, but here's what I knew. I guess I was about 19 at the time. Here's what I knew. I'm going to wake up in heaven. Do you know that in the short time span of 37 feet, I didn't have any fears? My first thought was not, I'm scared to die. My thought was, I'm a dead man, and I'm going to wake up in heaven. And it's going to be just like that. Boom. And that's why the Bible says it's sleep. I didn't die. I just went to, my body is sleeping until it's resurrected and reunited with my soul. Anyway. Hey, Jesus said, "Let not your heart be troubled. Believe in God, believe also in me." Easier said than done, right? He said, "Peace I leave with you." You ought to get your calendar out and check off all the days you live with peace. And look back at the end of the year and see how you did. Huh? I mean, Jesus said, "I'm leaving peace with you." Why are you so strung out? Well, even the disciples chose to worry. When Jesus died, they fretted. My land, they fled. They bailed. They're like, it's over. They could not grasp that he was going to rise from the dead. But when he did, now listen, it changed everything. And that's why even the Apostle Paul said, you shouldn't worry about anything. Here's a guy that had 2 prison terms. He was beheaded. Paul didn't seem to worry. Well, it's because of the resurrection. The resurrection. You see, when you truly believe that God is in control of tomorrow, that's a huge weightlifter, isn't it? And that's what Paul talks about, the second coming. And listen. Didn't Jesus say it's going to get worse? You think today, let's just say you think the world's in bad shape, morality's in the tank or whatever. I mean, we got a guy at a police station in Dallas wanting to shoot cops. We've had people like bin Laden. We've got all kinds of crazy stuff going on. And Jesus said, you haven't seen anything yet. It's going to get worse. Like, how could it get worse? It just is. And probably when we get to 2 Thessalonians, you'll see exactly why, but I have to move on. Let's get back. But you believe that Jesus died because we've all sinned and come short of the glory of God. And the wages of sin is death. You know, You ought to just stop sometimes and just think how horrible sin is. Just think of the most despicable wrongdoing you can think of. Okay? Now think of the smallest. Now here's the deal. With God, and this is what's hard to get, He's so holy. The smallest thing you can think of is despicable to God. The smallest. So when you think of yourself as having sin, you are totally depraved. You bring nothing to the table. Nothing. It reminds me of the emperor's new clothes. I know everybody knows that story. So the emperor, these two shysters are going to weave him some new clothes. They're invisible, but they are incredible. And the only people who can't see him are those who really are kind of like disloyal and don't like him, right? So they're at their machines and they're spinning nothing. But the king isn't saying anything because it reflects badly on him. So, looking good, So then he puts them on, he puts on nothing. And then he goes trotting around town on a parade until a little child says, he doesn't have any clothes on. And I'm telling you, there are a lot of people walking around, and they're walking around with no clothes on. And they think, before God, they look okay. And God says, you're naked. Without the righteousness of Jesus Christ, which He provides through the cross, you're just like that emperor, strutting around with no clothes on. But Paul said, but y'all believe. You have put your faith and trust in the death, burial, and resurrection. I mean, it matters what you believe. All right, so let's dig a little deeper, and I'm going to wrap this up. So here we go, all right? I'm kind of throwing a lot at you today. I know. But it'll be online, and then I know you'll flock to re-listen to it. Okay, so Jesus is going to descend from heaven. Even believers who have died over the years, they'll be resurrected. All of us who are alive. Now, I believe, I'm like Paul. I believe Jesus is going to come back in my lifetime. Okay? I just do. You say, well, why do you believe that? Oh, well, listen, right now, the foot is on the accelerator. We are flying to the end. Come on. Sometimes I wish that everybody was almost my age. You know what I mean? I mean, listen, if I could take you back to the 50s, the 60s, life was so calm. I know we had World War I, World War II, and all that, Korean War. But do you realize how much has happened over the last couple of decades? It is incredible. So we might talk about some of that in the coming weeks. But we all get reunited. Now, let me give you 5 things from the text, and we'll wrap it up. 5 things. Control. God will. God's in control of history. And one day He's going to take believers right out of the world. Snatch us away. He is coming again. Now, here's what I want you to understand. This is a concept you'll never understand, but you just have to believe it. All through history, God's been in control of history. Man has made his plans, committed his devious acts. He's done this, that, everything you can think of. We've had our Hitler. We can go back into time and look at everybody. 2 parallel tracks, like a train. And they're all headed to the same destination, the second coming of Jesus. There is nothing anybody can do to disrupt the plan of God. It's already been laid out. How How could God prophesy that one day in the future that Israel would be regathered? And he wrote that primarily in the Old Testament. How did he know Jerusalem was going to be destroyed, Israel would be scattered, the Jews would be gone, and there would only be a couple thousand in Israel, and now there's several million? How did he know they would be regathered from every corner of the world? Because he's God and he's in control. Now, God's not like we're not on puppet strings. How does God do it? I don't know. I'm not God. Anyway. But here's what I know. God's in control. Now, Acts 2, Jesus delivered up, this is what Peter preached, Jesus delivered up according to the definite plan and foreknowledge of God. Well, I thought the Jews crucified him. They did. That's what Peter said. You crucified and killed him by the hands of lawless men, but God raised him up. So I got God's plan. How does it all work? I don't know. Now, so let's go back. Okay, so God will snatch us away. All right, now, this half is gone. Y'all are left. What happens in the world when that happens? Okay, just think of the American economy. Let's just say a third are snatched away. A third. We've got a $17 trillion economy. Consumer spending makes up 70% of the GDP. What happens to consumer spending? Huh? What happens to tax dollars? What happens to all the Social Security checks? Government's out of money. I mean, they're out of money now, but you can't print. If you want to talk about printing money, study the history of Germany. Wow. I don't have time to go there this morning. But can you imagine the chaos, politically, economically, instability everywhere? Wow. Now, I could stop and tell you how it's going to get solved, but I don't have time this morning. All right? But number 3 is the confidence. Because remember 109? Listen. By this point, Paul could say to the Thessalonian church, when Jesus came the first time, he literally fulfilled 109 prophecies in the Old Testament. There are over 300 referring to his second coming. Pretty confident. Pretty confident. Number 4 is consecration. Here's what I mean. Peter wrote about this. He said, the end of the world is coming soon. Now, you understand when the Bible says soon, it could mean 1,000 years, a couple thousand. I mean, but it's coming. Because a lifetime of 80 years goes by quickly. Are you with me? Quickly. Now, I know it goes by slowly when you're taking that test and you're stuck on question 2 and it has 83. I got that. I mean, it's like, okay, I got it. But when you look back, you forget all that. Anyway, therefore, be earnest and disciplined in your prayers. Most important of all, continue to show deep love for each other. For love covers a multitude of sins. Cheerfully share your home with those who need a meal or a place to stay. God's given each of you a gift with great variety of spiritual gifts. Use them well. So here's what I know Peter says about the end times. That should increase your prayer life. Because your confidence is going up, is it not? I mean, you're going to be praying more, certainly. You got that much confidence, you're praying a lot more. 2, love. You don't have much time to love somebody. Hospitality, and then serving. Man, just get up out of here today and, man, look for a place to serve. You know what I mean? Because that's what you want to do. I mean, consecration. And then comfort. 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 Because, you know, God is in control. You think of how little you're in control. Think of all the things we do in America. We put up fences to keep intruders, animals out. they still get in or they still get out, right? I mean, we put them in prisons, and prisoners still get out, right? I mean, we're just not in control. We think that maybe we're going to eat blueberries and raspberries and take all these antioxidants, and that's going to be... you still could get cancer or whatever. I mean, it may not pan out, right? I mean, you don't know. You try to do the best you can. So you and I are not in control. We're not in control of much. I know we think we are. But God's in control. He has ultimate control. Preposterous? Not really. Not really. And that in itself should raise your level of hope and give you a lot more comfort. So, where is history going? And we'll tackle that next week. All right? Let's stand for prayer.